Hi, this is Pete here with the Boca Voice. Today I'm here with Nick and Mike Vaccarezza, who is running a fundraiser with Carlo Vaccarezza and John Williams from Frankendino's. You know, it's always wonderful when you get people in the community like John and Carlo who want to give back. As we all know, last week, this event that took place with Stoneman Douglas, this high school with this kid that just tragically took 17 people's lives, something has to be done. Not only on the financial side to help this community, these kids, but what's going to happen in the near future? How is this going to impact the short, middle, and long future of this community? And also nationally, what's this debate and how it's going to go along? These two young men who actually go to Stoneman Douglas took it upon themselves to get with their dad and look at how Frankendino's could help the community. Even though it's located in Boca Raton, they have long-standing roots in Broward County. Frankendino's used to be located just south of 10th on Federal Highway. It was located there for about 8 years, and then he brought it into Boca Raton. He's a great addition to Boca Raton. I'm very happy that it's located right around the corner from the office. Nick, Mike, thanks for joining us. So let's talk a little bit about the event. It's going to be Sunday, correct?
Yes, sir.
What time does it start, Mike?
Starts at 2, goes to 9.
All right, great. And tell us a little bit about what the costs are going to be and at the suggested donation.
We're asking for a minimum of $50, but you can obviously donate as much as your heart desires.
And all of the food and all of the drink and everything's donated 100% by John Williams and your dad. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to try to raise a bunch of money that day. Mm-hmm. So how many people do you expect?
There's no saying how many people are going to show up Sunday, but from the candle lightings and the vigils and all the memorials, a lot of people have showed that they cared. And the big candle lighting, I would guess there was close to 10,000 people there, so I hope every one of you do come out and try to support the fund.
Well, that's great. We're going to have a landing page up to try to get everybody out there. And Mike, tell us a little bit about you and what made you go to your dad and Nick go to your dad and talk to him about getting involved.
Well, I knew we had this, and as this tragic event happened, I grew up in Parkland. I was born around here. I was raised around here all my life. So like, as this happened at my school that I've been going to, both of us, for all the years, like I knew we had to do something.
And Nick, what were your thoughts when your dad talked to you about this?
I was all for it. My dad has donated money for the victims of Hurricane Irma in Houston, and when this happened, we figured, well, it's too close to home, and we know that no money will bring any lives back, but it will help as much as it can.
So let's talk about where this money's going to go. What are your hopes and dreams on, we raise this money, where's the money going to go?
It can go to victims of PTSD, raising awareness on mental illness, and supporting the families of the loved ones they've lost.
And I know you were also talking about there's already talks in the work when they tear down the building that the shootings actually took place, where they're hoping that they're going to put up a memorial. Now, is that where you're hoping where some of these funds are going to go?
Yeah, like the tragic event that happened in New York, the 9/11 memorial. Those memorials are not free, and when they tear this building down, we're hoping to build a memorial for the 17 people that lives were ended short because of this one young man's actions. So we don't want any of this event to go unnoticed. We want it to be remembered for the rest of our lives, and we want change.
So you talk about change. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about gun control now that you've seen what this happened. Tell me how you felt before and how you feel now.
Before, you didn't really think that someone of our age, someone that went to our school, he was in my grade since the 6th grade. He would have been graduating in my class. He obviously got removed from the school, but he was in my grade, my age, and you would have never thought someone would be this demonic to do something like this.
And how do you feel in regards to, there's a lot of debate now going around about guns, and how do you feel?
Well, put it this way. I'm 18. I can buy a military grade weapon, but I cannot play a penny slot or I cannot buy a beer at a sports bar. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I understand your point. Mike, how do you feel about it?
Guns, I don't think they should be allowed to people at such a young age. Sole purpose of a weapon is to kill. So like nobody should really have them, only to defend themselves, and that's it.
And I believe in guns. I believe that it was a good weapon to use in defense. But if you're defending a home, you can obviously just use a pistol. If you're hunting, you can use a bolt-action scoped rifle. If you're hunting birds of flight, you can use a shotgun. But the type of gun that he used should only be in the hands of law enforcement and military use. There is no reason why a civilian should own such a high-grade weapon.
Mike, how do you feel about that?
The exact same. No, the only reason anybody should have a gun like that, like an AR, is just military enforcement. Any people like that, no civilians.
See, it's difficult for me, right? Because I'm an avid gun owner. Okay, so when I hear that and you go through all of the different conversations, I understand both sides of the fence, and I understand where you guys are coming from, and it's a tragic event, and I understand where you have people that have that conversation of what a AR is and what a bolt action gun is and what a shotgun is and what a pistol is, right? All of them do the same amount of damage. All of them do the same amount. And the problem is a lot of people don't have knowledge of how to work a weapon, right? Now, I spent a lot of years in the Marine Corps, and I was trained to use a weapon. You have great points, and you brought up. The problem we have is that there's not enough education around weapons. And my biggest complaint about weapons and about when we talk about this entire dialogue is that no one is having the real dialogue. The dialogue is around education, around gun ownership. The dialogue is around having a real conversation about why aren't we licensing people to have the guns? When you can walk into a gun show and a person can actually buy a gun from another person that's not even a licensed gun dealer and just walk out without doing paperwork, that's a real problem. They should have to have some paper trail. Those are the problems that we really need to address. There's a lot of problems with the gun laws in this country, and they need to be addressed. The problem is that you have so many laws on the table and so many people on this side, and they're fighting so dramatically on both sides. The real reason, all of them should be thrown out, and they should write a real gun law that makes sense. And that's really what needs to happen. Everybody should be licensed. Think about this. You have to have a license to drive a car, right? You have to have another endorsement to drive a motorcycle, right? And if you want to drive an 18-wheeler, you have to have even another license to drive an 18-wheeler. You don't have to have a license to buy a gun, okay? That, to me, is absolutely insane. I want to start a lot of dialogue, and I want to have a conversation that's going to talk about responsible gun ownership. You need to have responsible gun ownership. You need to be able to have this dialogue. Kids have to have that responsible dialogue. Both of my children understand the difference. Once that bullet leaves the front of that gun, there is no pulling it back. Once those things happen, there is no pulling it back. But it's not just the bullet. It's the brain that causes the bullet, the trigger, to be pulled. And that's the problem that has to be discussed. How are we going to train you guys, right, to understand what's going on? And from my understanding, and I've listened to a lot of the kids talk in your school, they all said that they identified that this kid was going to be a problem. And you guys did tell teachers they thought those were problems, right? So who was it that let everybody down? I really think that this happening here, so close to home, with so many people that are here, after it happened now in how many different cities, I do believe that it's going to make dramatic changes. And I saw at least a half a dozen young people get up and speak very, very, very eloquently about guns, about mental illness. I also saw how dramatically people talked about, one person identified this person online that he wanted to be a professional school shooter. It got directly to the FBI, and the FBI didn't do anything about it. How are we going to address that? These things have to be discussed, and they have to be an open debate, and those are things that we really need to talk about. And those are the things that I think we really need to discuss hard. But I can't stress enough the importance of none of this can take place without young men like you and young women out there that are going to be involved in your community. All of this starts by community involvement. All of this starts by getting involved actively. Community involvement and giving back is the start of everything. Just like your dad picked up the phone and called me, says, "Hey Pete, I need a favor." And immediately I said yes, right? So what do? I pick up the phone. And I started calling people, and I asked. I called Mayor Susan Haney, and I said, "Mayor, I need a favor. We're going to have this event over at Frankendino's. We really need some help." Because the mayor said, whatever we can do, we're going to try to do the best we can. And she started putting things in motion, right? Because she knows it's a problem. She wants to get involved. Jim and Marta Batmazian, they just asked, "Hey, what can we do to help?" Because they're the landlords at Frankendino's. And they said, "Hey, whatever we can do to help." It's a tragic incident. We want to help, right? So community is the most important thing that would come out of this. We need to figure out a way to not let these lives, right, not just die in vain. We need to figure out a way to rise above it and make sure we're doing it. And I commend both of you from rising above it and allowing it to become something bigger than just you. And you guys are just, in my opinion, just heroes for doing it.
Because if we don't unite as a community and we let this break us down, then we're falling to what he wanted to happen. We need to unite. We cannot let this just go away and become another statistic. We need to end this. We need this event to be the last of its kind, because this kid, I've known him since the 6th grade, and I'm in the 12th grade. He would not have passed a psychological test. He did get suspended from my school last year for bringing a knife to school. So they let him come back. They said, "You have to bring your books in a Ziploc bag. No more backpack." So he comes back after the suspension is up, and what happens? He brings another knife. And what happens? He gets expelled from the school, and he goes to an alternative school. Why didn't my school reach out to the law enforcement and say, "Listen, this kid brought a knife to school twice"? The FBI knew about the comments on the YouTube video of Columbine. It was on the Columbine YouTube comment section. He says, "I want to be a professional school shooter." Things like this should not go unnoticed, because maybe it could have prevented it. And they said, we couldn't trace the comments to who it was. Well, they could have funneled it down and siphoned the IP address of the comment, and they definitely could have found who put that comment up. But they're not going to blame themselves. There needs to be more detailed that goes into these things, or else it'll happen again.
Mike, do you have anything else to add?
Basically the same thing as him. They need to tighten up on all these laws, make them work so that families are safe. Families are scared. Parents are scared to send their children to school. Kids are scared to go to school. Like, this can't be a thing anymore. It has to be safe. Like, it's a place to learn, not to be afraid that you're gonna die every day.
I have to leave my little brother, my baby brother, in that school for the next 2 years. He's a sophomore. I'm graduating. I have to leave my baby brother in that school. That, you know, you never know if it will happen again. And things have to change, because a city like Parkland, I read online that it was the safest city in Florida. That was obviously an opinionated answer, but it was written as the safest city in Florida. So this could happen anywhere. And I don't want people to, in a week, forget about it, you know, because that's what happens in situations like this. We need to not let this become a statistic. We need to make this the last event like this to happen to us in this country. There's obviously a problem. Even the Las Vegas shooting, San Bernardino, Sandy Hook, goes back to Columbine. Why hasn't there been laws after these events to try and just prevent these things to happen? There hasn't been. And it keeps happening. And how many times does this need to happen for something to be changed? If your car keeps breaking down, and you're getting by fixing it, why don't you actually fix it so it stops breaking down?
I understand.
This is gonna keep happening until we change something. And we can't just let this fall into the background. And we can't let this dissolve us as a community. We need to unite as a community. Because if we let this hurt us, if we let this break us apart, we're falling to what he wanted.
Do you think in any way that the community is letting you down right now?
I feel like we need to unite. We need to stand as one, because Parkland is right next to Boca.
So let's do this. Tell everybody, just reiterate where it's going to be on Sunday and what time, and what else you'd like them to know emphatically.
It's going to be at Frankendino's. It's a block south of Meisner. It's 15 minutes to Douglas, and it's in basically the middle of everyone. So I feel like everybody can unite there, and we can make changes to not just the political aspect of this, the emotional aspect, and the social aspect. Socially, we can unite as not just by cities, we can unite as Florida and as the United States of America. And so this does not become another statistic like another school shooting did. We can make this the last of its kind.
From your lips to God's ears, Nick. Please join Nick, Mike, Carlo, and John at Frankendino's on Sunday as they have this great fundraiser for the community, and we try to put back together this community. We really need to come together, as Nick put it so eloquently, come together as one. It doesn't matter if you live in Parkland, whether you live in Boca, whether you live in Coral Springs, doesn't matter where you live in South Florida or the nation. We're all together in this as one. We need to put a stop to this senseless violence. We need to come up with solutions. We need to figure out a way that we can create solutions, not additional problems. And we need to come together as one and help create a stop for all of this. Thank you for joining. Please visit the website. Frankendino's supports parklandstrong.com. And please join us on Sunday.